So here I am in the second part, and here I'll be covering the rest of the information that I have on this topic. So let's get started. So in the previous video I described about the crime scene, about the things, the proof that had gotten the police and the whole crime scene, and here I'm gonna talk about Brenda and the rest of how the police found out the murderer and the trial. Everything will be in this video. So till now, Brenda was not really aware what had happened to her family, and all of a sudden she thought that she should go to Facebook just to have some fun, some chatting and all with friends and family. So she hopped on Facebook, and there she saw a lot of messages and comments like, are you okay, how are you, and all. So she got really confused, like why people are sending me such kind of messages. So she asked one of her friend what had happened, why you were asking such question. And she said, don't you know what had happened to your family? And then the friend told her what had actually happened to her family, and she couldn't believe that. She thought that these people are doing some sick kind of a prank on her. So she didn't believe the friend, and the principal of her school was in Sydney. She didn't went with them, so she got contact with other teachers who were in the trip, and she told them to send Brenda the first flight available to Sydney, and they did the same. They sent Brenda the on the first flight they find, and when she arrived at the airport, Kathy was already there with some few policemen. And right after she reached in the airport, the police took her to a secret room and said what had happened to her family, and she completely broke down on her aunt's arms. And she had a she later said in an interview that her biggest regret in her life is that how she left her family, and how she didn't really said much before leaving Sydney. So basically what happened is that when she had to go for the trip, her father men went with her to leave her on the airport, I think. And there they just stood awkwardly and didn't hug, didn't told each other how much they love. In the teenager time, you feel like you are so tough for this kind of interactions with your parents. So she didn't say anything, and she just said bye and she left. And that was her biggest regret, because she couldn't tell her father that how amazing father he was, how lovely he was, and how much she loves him and her family. And that was her biggest regret. Brenda was still a minor, so Robert approached Kathy that they should adopt Brenda right after they found the murder, and which was really strange, but it's a good idea, everyone thought. And later they adopted Brenda, and they also got the estate of Mintz house, and they also got the news agency. All the properties they had went to Kathy and Robert, because Brenda was minor at that time. And Kathy and Robert did so much to make Brenda's life normal, but when you lose someone, not even someone, the whole family, is really tough to get back. So, but they still did what they could, and that was the biggest thing. They also started a fund to raise money for Brenda's future and studies, and a lot of community people helped there also. They gave money, and that went to Brenda. And they also uh, presented the news agency as kind of a memorial of Min and his whole family. A lot of bouquets and garlands and gifts were filled the front of the agency, and that was a really heartwarming situation at that time. This case was a huge in Australia at that time, so detectives and police had a really big pressure on them from even media, that everyone was trying to know what had happened, and it was actually a really big case at that time. So they were really in pressure to find out the murderer as soon as they could. And but there was a lot of dead ends because there was no such evidence that they could find. And in between these times, a lot of theories and a lot of rumors started happening. Like some said, like what if Chinese mafia involved, any kind of gang involved, or some even said they were in great depth and that's why they got killed. Some even said that Min actually killed his whole family and then killed himself, which was later turned down by police because there was no chance that could happen because the injuries were so hard that no one can give himself a horse of that deep wound. And even post-mortem report was also there, so there was no question of self-inflicted wound or any kind of like that. So this rumor got shut down really quick. But then another rumor started going that the armed robbers, and actually what happened was that 2 months before Min's murder, Min actually witnessed a armored robbery, and he also witnessed and helped police in this case. So people thought that what if the robbers tried to took revenge on him and they killed him, but later police also denied that it couldn't be happen like that. So this rumor also shut down. So police was really in a big question that it could not happen by someone outsider or by someone outsider, yes, because the door, like I said before, the door was unlocked. There was no sign of forced entry, and it must have someone who had a spare key or a key of his own. The person must have known the layout of the house. The person also must have aware of the absence of Brenda. The person also knew when to go and how to go. He had the great idea about the electricity box and all. So it was clear that it must have happened by someone who was in the family. So, and in this situation, only one name was coming to their head, and that was Robert, obviously. And they then, tried to dig into this Robert's life, and they tried to track him, but they did not wanted to put Brenda in a situation where she could be get harm. Both Kathy and Robert were interviewed after 4 days of the discovery of the Mintz family murder, and in the interview, Kathy was really calm, cool, really collected, and putting her points really well. And on the other hand, Robert was so confused. All the time he was looking at the ground, on the table, on his hand, but not doing any eye contact with the interviewers, which was really odd. And even after that, uh, again they took an interview of them both, and there Robert said that he actually saw 5 bodies, and but he didn't really told Kathy about that. But after some days, he again called police just to confirm that he actually meant to say that he found 4 bodies, and I think he mistakenly said 5 bodies, which was really suspicious to police. That why, if you are even telling something wrong, still it's okay. I mean, you went through some trauma, so we are not really putting on you that much of pressure. But he called from his side, and telling these things was really suspicious, and also now he was in the prime suspects, so it was literally odd for them. And so now they were even getting more and more confident that Robert could be the murderer, but they couldn't do really much because Brenda was in his house, and they didn't wanted to put Brenda in a situation, in a danger situation basically. But they also knew that he couldn't do anything with her, because if he had any intention to hurt her, he would have waited for Brenda to return from her trip, and then he could kill her too. But he didn't do that, so it means he is not going to hurt her. So at this time, police was really clear that Brenda is a little bit safe, and they couldn't really go for and accuse him, so they needed some strong proofs. So they decided to put CCTV camera inside Robert's house, and this would be a 6 months electronic surveillances, and they would continuously watch over him just to get any kind of proof or any evidence they could, if they could find. Okay, so in between they also took another interview of Kathy, and there they said Kathy that they actually have found 24 bloody imprints of shoes in the house, and that shoes must be a Asics sneaker brand, and it had the size of 8.5 to 10.5, and that's it. And later they saw that Robert was in the video, in the CCTV video, they saw a Robert cutting his Asics shoe box into pieces and flushing in a toilet. So now they got confirmed that this was the killer. So they immediately started searching his house for 5 days, and they knew that when in the day of the discovery of the family, the murder of the family, In that morning, Robert was actually cleaning his garage, so they knew that there is something in the garage that he was hiding. So they tried to look every corner of the garage, and there they found a really tiny bit stain that was a transformed stain, which was like the stain was from, it can be from a weapon, from a cloth, from a globe, from anywhere, but from something else. It transferred on the carpet, and there was a really tiny bit of stain. So they swabbed the blood and sent that to lab testing. But at that time, Australia was, even till now, Australia is not that advanced in lab testing, so they sent that to USA. And when the lab test result came out, the result was that the blood stain matched 4 out of 5 members of Lynn family, which was clear that murderer was Robert. So they, and also the stain was also named Stain 91. And then Robert sent to prison. And best part of this case is that the justice given to that monster was so late that it gonna frustrate you. So they arrested him, but they didn't have any like that, there was no really big amount of evidence. So they put a cellmate in charge. They gave him a tape recorder and gave him the work to kind of bring information out of him, and in return they were giving him a good amount of less sentences or some kind of, they were doing deal. And the cellmate did his work. He recorded all the conversation, somewhere in the conversation and somewhere not, because he couldn't record everything. But he even presented as a witness, and he said that Robert told him that he had purchased a hammer from a store which had no CCTV camera. Later, after the murder, he threw the weapon in a place where there was a camera, and he is really terrified that they could find that weapon. He also thought to put that weapon in a innocent person's house, but he couldn't really get time to do that. On 20th August 2012, Robert went for pre-trial, which means pre-trial is a kind of a trial that happens before to decide if this case is eligible for trial or not. And the judge decided this case is eligible for trial, so the case transferred to trial. Trial took 5 years to take place, and due to for a lot of reason. And in the main trial, the prosecutor, they brought all the DNA test reports, all the post-mortem reports, all the evidences that they had, and all the other things that are needed. And there came 2 questions: why he did and why he didn't kill Brenda. So the reason why he killed is definitely the jealousy. Min had the kind of success that he always wanted. I mean, Robert always wanted, and he never got that, and he was so jealous of Min. He was also jealous that Min was more loved by his parents than him, which is a very odd thing. I mean, Min is their child. They would definitely love him more than you. What the hell? So that was the reason. And second reason, the sexual attraction towards Brenda. So even Brenda also testified against him, and she told the jury that he had been assaulting him throughout the year. Even he a lot of time inappropriately touched her before the murder, and after murder when he took her, I mean he adopted her, he even started assaulting her every day, every time. And even Min's dad also testified against Robert. He said that once he even saw Robert standing by Brenda's room at night when he was going washroom. And so these two questions answers were there, so everything was clear, but jury decided he is not guilty. And it took 3 more times to prove him guilty. So 3 times the jury rejected the case, and in the 4th time they finally accepted that this is actually a murderer. They got a verdict, and finally they sentenced him 5 of life sentences with no chances of parole. So that's it. This is what I had the information about Lin family murder case, and I hope I brought all the topics in this case. If I have forgot to mention anything, please let me know, and I hope I'll see you in my next video. Bye.